Hello, I'm Katherine Pate, and I'm a former head of maths, now teaching IGCSE maths part-time. I'm also one of the series editors of Maths Progress International, and with my colleague Naomi Norman, helped to plan and shape the Maths Progress International Key Stage 3 course. I've also helped to produce previous Pearson Key Stage 3 maths courses, including Impact Maths, Maths Connect, and Level Up Maths, and I was one of the creators of the Pearson International Primary and Lower Secondary Curriculum. To plan a Key Stage 3 course, you need to know what your students already know from Key Stage 2 and look ahead to what they need to know before they start their IGCSE course. So that's what we did. And Maths Progress International has been meticulously planned to ensure all the maths content students need is covered, building on Key Stage 2 knowledge and providing a firm foundation for IGCSE. But a good Key Stage 3 course doesn't only cover the Key Stage 3 content. It should develop students as mathematicians who can reason about mathematics, communicate mathematically, and solve unfamiliar problems. That's why we've included lots of reasoning and problem-solving questions and challenge activities to help students develop these skills and give students plenty of opportunities to do mathematics and to talk about mathematics. A good Key Stage 3 course should also build students' confidence and motivation in mathematics. And a sure way of doing this is to make sure that they experience success in their maths lessons. That's why Maths Progress International maths lessons start with warm-up questions, questions based on prior knowledge that students should be able to answer easily, so they start the lesson with a confidence boost. Formative assessment is incredibly important in creating opportunities for students to achieve this success. You need to be sure that they have the prior knowledge required before you start the topic, that students have the foundation of knowledge to build on. The Maths Progress International Progress and Assess Pack includes a baseline test for the start of Year 7, and I'm now going to show you what that looks like. So here we are on this page, on the teacher books view, the Maths Progress International Progress and Assessment Pack opens here. So this pack includes all the assessments that you need to measure students' progress and help them to acquire skills and knowledge to achieve the best they possibly can. Being able to show this progress, or what they need to do to make progress, motivates and helps students to achieve success. So this pack includes baseline tests, classroom assessments, and online mark books for tracking and reporting. So this 1 hour, 55 minutes actually, baseline test here helps you to identify students' strengths and weaknesses at the start of Year 7. So you click on the icon and you can download the baseline test, the question paper and the mark scheme. And to save us time, I did that earlier, so I can show you now. Here is the Year 7 baseline test. This is the Word version, which you can use if you'd like to customize or edit the test. You can see it's a write-on test, plenty of space for working. You can also download a PDF version. So the test covers the main topics that you would expect students to know at the end of Year 6. Obviously, it can't cover all Key Stage 2 content, but it covers what we are assuming they will already know when they start their Key Stage 3 course. So you can see a lot of number, as you'd expect from Key Stage 2, but some reflections, a little bit of algebra coming in. Sorry, going a bit faster now. A reasoning question as well, test their reasoning skills. And it ends with a shape and measures question. So the overall mark is 55, and it's expected to take an hour to take the test. So I'll just show you the mark scheme now. Oh, sorry, wrong one. There's the mark scheme. There we are. So all the tests in this assessment pack have a similar mark scheme. They show you how to award the marks, what the sort of codes are in the mark scheme below. And they give you the correct answers and show you where you can award marks for method or for working. Following on from the mark scheme, there's also a really useful table that shows you the topics covered by each question and gives them a grade, a step. So this is one of the Pearson progression steps on the Pearson progression scale. So it gives you an indication of the level of skill required to answer that question. So these help you to see which topics students need help and support on, or which groups of students or individual students, and you can build that into your teaching and planning. And then finally in this mark scheme, this table at the end is to convert the marks the student got in the test into a step on the progression scale. And there's a link there that shows to the website that shows how the Pearson progression service works. So you can record the results of all the tests in this progress and assess pack in the online mark book, which, if we go back to it, you can access here. Now I've got some slides to show you of what this mark book looks like. Obviously I can't show you any real students, so we've put together some slides of fictitious students. So if we just get this to start the slideshow. Sorry, it's being a little bit slow. I'll go to a better view. Here we are. So here's our fictitious student name. So you'll input your student names. This shows their mark in this baseline assessment test. So you can see here that the mark book gives a red, amber, green status for each question in the assessment. So you can see at a glance how students are doing in each question. You can see if individual or whole class interventions might be needed. So for example, here there's only one student that struggled with this question, but for this question, maybe most of the students in the class could do with a bit of support. So you can be aware of students' strengths and weaknesses as you start new topics. So once you've input the baseline test marks for each student, then you get a graph for each student that looks like this. So this is just for one student in the group. So this helps you to set targets right up to the end of Key Stage 3. It plots where they are at the beginning of their course at Step 4 and predicts that by the end of the course they should reach Step 7. As you put more assessment results into the mark book as you progress through the course, they are also plotted on this graph so you can see whether each student is on target. And then on this view, you can also see an overview of a whole class's performance against their targets over the Key Stage 3 course. Now again, we've got the students' names in the first two columns. This is their target for the end of the course. And on the far right, we've got their maths progress baseline test. At the moment, we have nothing in assessment progress because only the results of the baseline tests have gone in. But as eventually this column, as you put in more data, as they take more assessments as they go through this course, this column will flag up whether or not students are on track. Okay, so we've looked at the formative assessment, the Year 7 baseline test. But summative assessment is also vitally important as it shows us what students have learned and understood. Most maths courses and schemes of work set a test at the end of a unit. The marks are recorded and then students move on to the next unit. It can be difficult to timetable intervention for those students who scored poorly in the test, particularly if other students scored well, and so whole class intervention is not needed, or if you're under pressure to keep up with the scheme of work. So that's why we designed this unique structure for Maths Progress International. So just to go over that quickly, in Master, a series of lessons help students to master knowledge and skills. Check is a formative assessment that checks students' understanding. It also asks them to rate their confidence in those skills, and they use this and their test score to help them plan their own personalised route through the rest of the unit. The Strengthen section supports those who do not yet have a solid understanding or do not feel confident, while the Extend section broadens and deepens the learning in topics where students did well in the check test and also do feel confident. And finally, the test at the end of the unit is a summative test that measures their progression through the unit. So let's take a look at a unit in the student book to see how this works in practice. So I'm going to come out of that PowerPoint. We'll go back to, hopefully, There we are, that's the one I wanted. I'm going to show you a lesson in Year 8, so sort of right in the middle of the course. So here I'm going to take you to Year 8, Unit 5. Excuse me. So this is Unit 5, as I said, and there are 5 master lessons on graphs. The first one is direct proportion. Lots of lovely questions on that. Then we have a STEM lesson on interpreting graphs, with a focus on science, technology and engineering subjects. 5.3 is distance time graphs. And another lot of lovely questions there. Sorry, it's a bit slow. 5.4, rates of change. And then finally 5.5 is on misleading graphs. So after those 5 master lessons, we come to the checkup test. So this is the formative assessment to check their understanding. The questions cover the key knowledge and skills from the lessons, and they're grouped under headings, as you can see here. The first are on direct proportion, then on distance time graphs, and on the second page of the test, real life graphs. So this labelling of the sections helps students to identify their strengths and weaknesses in particular areas. I also want to show you this. At the end of every checkup test, students rate their competence, and they use this to decide which path they're going to take through strengthen and extend and personalise their learning. So how does it work? If a student scores poorly in questions under one or more headings or is low in confidence, they work through the related sections in strengthen to build their understanding. So if we suppose a student does well in direct proportion questions and the real life graph questions, but poorly in distance times graphs, then they don't need this direct proportion section that you can see on screen now of strengthen. So they'll miss that, but go straight to the distance time graphs, which you can see there on the left-hand page. These questions have more structure, step-by-step, more hints, and they progress at a slower pace to help strengthen students' understanding. So when students have completed the strengthen questions in the section or sections that they need, they move on to extend, which has more problem solving and synoptic questions. So we do hope that every student will do the strengthening they need, but also then do some extend questions to broaden and deepen their understanding. And again, there are 4 pages of those lovely rich questions. So in the next lesson, they're ready for the unit test, here shown here at the end of the unit. So in this test, the questions aren't grouped by topic, but they're in order of difficulty, which we show with this bar at the side, which gets increasingly darker as the questions get harder as you go through the test. Excuse me. So in each unit, the formative assessment in the checkup test allows every student the time and support they need to consolidate and extend their learning, picking up misconceptions and gaps in understanding quickly, and helping to prepare students for success in the end of unit test. So that's the unit structure. So here's the assessments for Year 7, and we have the same for Years 8 and 9 on the next page. So for each of Years 7, 8 and 9, there are end of unit tests, end of term tests, and an end of year test. The end of unit tests in this pack are at the same level as the unit tests in the student book, but have completely different questions. So you can use them as extras or instead of the ones in the books, and to fit in with your school's assessment timetable. So let's look at the end of unit test for Year 8, Unit 5. That's the unit we just looked at in the student book. See here that for the end of unit tests for Year 8, there are 3 different icons, but clicking on them shows which tests are covered. Excuse me. So you know which ones to download. And of course, I have downloaded one earlier to save a bit of time. So this time I've got the PDF version. Here it comes. So this is the test for that unit that we just looked at. So again, it's right on test, really useful for these kind of graph questions, and it covers the same topics at the same level as the end of unit test in the book. They're also available in Word, so they are editable, and I'll just show you quickly the mark scheme. So you can see it has all the same sort of features as the last one I showed you. It's got all the answers, then this topic table that shows you what topics each question covers, and that gives you a level, a progression step, and then that table again to convert the marks in the test to a step on the progression scale. And you then can add all these into your online mark book for this group of students, and this will start to track their progress through the course against their targets on that graph that we saw earlier. Okay, there are, these are 35-minute tests of 30 marks each for every unit. So that means the 11 unit assessments in years 7 and 8 and 12 in year 9, so lots of assessment. There are also the end of term tests, 3 for each year. These are 45-minute tests that cover all the topics covered in the previous term. And there's a 55-minute end of year test for each year. And at the end of year 9, as well as the end of year test, there are also these 2 international GCSE baseline tests. These are designed to help you decide whether a student should take the foundation or higher route. So all these tests are available in Word and in PDF, and they have full mark schemes like the ones I've already shown you. All these tests are written specifically for Maths Progress International, so they test exactly the content covered in the unit, term and year, no more and no less. The disadvantage of using assessments from other sources is that they're rarely designed to match your scheme of work and order of teaching topics. The Maths Progress International assessments also use exam styles and questions. Sorry, I'm going to start that paragraph again. I'll just pause for a minute. I've got an annoying cough. All these tests are written specifically for Maths Progress International, so they test exactly the content covered in the unit, term and year, no more and no less. The disadvantage of using assessments from other sources is that they're very rarely designed to match your scheme of work or your order of teaching topics. The Maths Progress International assessments also use exam-style questions to begin to familiarise students with these well before they start their IGCSE course. As they're available as editable Word documents, you can customise them and use the question to prepare your own tests if you wish. But really, we've created all these assessment materials so that you don't have to. Also, in Maths Progress International, you can set your students auto-marked questions. So all these auto-marked questions are under the exercises heading, and you can set them for homework for your students or for distance learning. Sorry, they're taking a moment to load. Here we are. So let's try looking at that one again. So year 8 graphs. There's a red mark here which shows that I've been playing around with it already and got some of the questions wrong. So for question 1 in 5.1, I'm going to go for try again. So you can see the original question. I'd like to say I didn't really get it wrong. That was just for the purposes of research. So here we have the first question. They're multiple choice questions. This one's about direct proportion. If students want extra help, they can click on this button, the Learning Aid. This will take you back to the student book pages that relate to this topic, so they can read back through those and get some help there. This one, the Help Me button, will also give you some, I'll press this one so you can see, it gives you a sort of summary of what they would have learned in the lesson. So here, a key point about direct proportionality, and then they have the chance to answer the lesson, the question. So I am deliberately going to answer it wrongly because I want you to see what happens when you check the answers. It just tells you to try again. So you can have another go. Or I could reset it. No, it's not going to let me do that. Right. So sorry, I want to go back now to the exercises. So in this one, so this was the first screen. Suppose they hadn't gone for the help and I'm going to click image C. Check answer there. That actually gives them a helpful hint. It reminds them that the values of the impairments decrease or decrease at a constant rate. So it gives them some help before they try again. So lots of opportunities here to pick up the common errors and to put students back on the right path. Then when they get the right answer, well done, try the next part. Now at any point, students can look at their results. And this shows for the questions what their score was, how many times they tried it, the time they spent on it, and gives them some feedback. So here it's suggesting that you don't really get it, you haven't got high enough marks, look at your notes and hints and learning it and then try again. And clicking here will give you a similar exercise. Finally, when the student feels they've done all they can or run out of time or whatever, they submit their score and exit. And that is then they get, you can see my failed attempts in the previous days as well. But this shows them how many of the learning aids they've used, the time they spent. And once this goes onto the auto-marked record for teachers, once it's been submitted, you also will be able to see this information and you'll be able to see whether students have understood the topic, whether they've spent a reasonable amount of time trying to understand the topic, and you can assess their number of attempts and identify their strengths and weaknesses, and also see how much independent work they're doing. Are they taking advantage of these learning aids? I hope that this tour of the assessment options in Maths Progress International has shown you how formative and summative assessment were planned into it from the start so that you and your students can track their progress and you can intervene swiftly to help keep their learning on track. To summarise, in Maths Progress International, assessment is a key element in bolstering progression in mathematics. The unit structure of check-up, strengthen and extend, and then unit test provides inbuilt progression and differentiation. Summative assessments measure students' progress through the course. All assessment questions are appropriately levelled and reflect exam styles so that students become familiar with the types of questions they'll meet later in their mathematics journey. And the online markbook tracks students' strengths and weaknesses so you can see if individual or whole class interventions are needed. Thank you for watching.